Everyone, welcome back to the channel. Jeffrey here again. I have Ilya Perlov here with me. And Ilya has been a client of mine for over a year now. And I think his journey should show you that, no one's situation is really that unique, that the goal is always the same. The goal is grow in the right ways, become an irreplaceable asset in your relationship. Hi. And once you become an irreplaceable asset, everything takes care of itself. And whether your partner's having an affair, whether you're on the brink of a divorce, I don't care what your situation is. If you deliver that, if you actually grow in the proper ways, in the genuine ways, everything else takes care of itself. Everything else falls into place. So I know a lot of you are skeptics to this. So let's get down to a story to make sure that we show you why it's not false. So Ilya, I guess I want to start here with kind of outlining your story and your journey when you first met me to where you are today, because you went through a lot. You went through heavy resistance. You were on the brink of a divorce, really. You were about to lose your family, lose your children. And there was a history of affairs and very difficult moments, differences that seemed to be irreconcilable. I mean, you had everything going against you. So tell us, how are things like when you first met me, when you first found the program, etc.?
It was a wild, wild ride. To probably a month before I started the program, my wife was already hinting at divorce. And then 2 weeks after that, she was already putting a date that she's going to move out with the kid far, like an hour away from me. We were going to have to split up everything and figure out how to do the divorce route. I first resisted hard. I tried to, do the high value man card and try to do all types of toxic things, and nothing kept working. I try to incorporate things I learned from other courses to get it better, and it only kept making it worse and worse and worse, to the point where she saw nowhere, this was going nowhere. And I was really, really desperate.
Yeah. So she was decided on divorce at that point. She was threatening to take the kids away from you, basically. And I'm guessing do you try no contact? Do you try smart contact? Do you try, what did you try when you said you were doing things in a way that actually pushed her further away? What did you do exactly? What was your strategy back then?
My strategy was, first, I picked up a weird stonewalling thing from another course where basically you were about to get into an argument, you got to cool off, you got to walk away for 20 minutes, come back and talk about it. But in reality, it never taught me how to talk about it. So I would just come back and talk about logical things, not hearing anything she was saying. And it just kept me getting deeper and deeper, where the fights wouldn't just be about one certain thing. It would just be, everything would be dumped into it. And it would just, it was hopeless.
Yeah.
Hopeless.
Yeah. I think the hard part is when people are in the brink of a divorce like this, the problems are not just one problem. It's a multitude of problems that are all interconnect. It's a complex web. And so when an argument happens, it's not just like one thing, it's many things. So that's why people blow up. That's why people feel really hopeless. And the advice of just walk away and try to have a civil conversation. Yeah, easier said than done. It's that's like trying to take a vacation away from your job that's stressful. Yeah, you can take a vacation, you can feel good, but when you come back, the same thing happens. It doesn't change anything. It's not fixing things at the root. And you tried to take the Gottman course, right? The Gottman course, and you did a bunch of therapists as well. Is that where you learned that from?
Yeah. The therapist kind of just let us, talk out each other's problems, but never really put a solution to it. So I just got, more material for us to throw into fights. And the Gottman approach, there was no direction in it. It just kind of said that this is what a successful couple looks like, but it didn't tell you how to get to that successful couple. It told you you should talk about problems, but it didn't tell you how to specifically talk about problems, how to kind of narrow it down into one problem, find that core problem, kind of get, find that spider web, the middle of it, and kind of go out to all of it.
Yeah, it's almost like what we say too. It's knowing the what is the easy part. Like knowing what to do, what a good relationship is supposed to look like is the easy part, but the how, the process of getting there is the hard part. And I think a lot of other coaches like Gottman and so on, they tend to focus on the what a lot. Like they tell you you have to unconditionally love, communicate better. It's like, I get that, but how?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not clear. So how long did you guys try Gottman
It was probably
and
about a
therapy?
year and a half of counseling, Gottman stuff. And
A year
it
and a
kind of,
half.
yeah. So, and it kind
Oof.
of like maybe put like a band-aid on a situation at that moment. So say like, we got into a fight into it, not talking, then we would go do something about it. It might fix it for a week, but then the core issues were never dealt with. So it would just continue, continue, continue. And to the
Yeah.
point where she felt like there was no point to say anything because it was just never going to get better. Things would just get us even further and further apart. It's like the Gottman approach says that once one person turns away and the other one turns to each other, just like one person turns towards, the other one walks away, then the other one tries to go forward, then the other one goes, and the more time passes, the further and further you get away from each other. So it's like there's no way to kind of solve it unless you do your course, your program, your approach.
Let's talk about that. I don't want this to be too salesy,
True.
but like,
It's true.
um, but so your partner wanted a divorce, right? And why? What kept you going for so long? Like, you did Gottman and therapy for a whole year and a half, and I think, often the most hopeless part about this journey is Gottman is supposed to be the head honcho in this field. Okay, like, you want your relationship fixed, you supposedly go to Gottman.
Mm.
And so here you guys went to Gottman for a year and a half, and you talk about your problems, you try all his tactics, you try all his everything, and it didn't work. And so the thinking, I think, that you had and your partner had was, well, if the best couldn't solve it, no point talking about this, no point dealing with this, no point working on this, no point, this is done, this is dead. Is that kind of the
Exactly.
thinking as well?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think the problem is the Gottman is really heavy on unconditional love, which kind of turns you into this needy, controlling, victimizing person that it's just turns you more toxic than understanding that, she's her own person, I'm my own person. I should be attracting her towards me, not controlling her towards me, It's
Yeah.
kind of a wrong
Yeah.
approach to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was over a year ago for you.
Hmm.
Brink of a divorce, almost lost your kids, tried therapy, tried Gottman, nothing really worked, felt even more hopeless because that didn't work. Lost. Now,
Yes.
fast forward to today. Describe it to us. What is it like today?
It's always a work in progress. It's like a forever work.
For sure.
I'm like a forever learner in this thing. We're actually gonna have a talk after this program tonight once we put the kid down to solve some things. But at least now our disagreements don't tear us apart. It doesn't kind of we actually find solutions to things. We learn new things about each other. We don't try to make assumptions. Like before, I would assume a lot of negative things about her, try to blame her character. And now I'm just always aware of the environment, like what's going on around us. Is it something that I did? Is it something around her job? Is there something around family? To kind of dig deeper into problems, find solutions, and then get on the same page, have the same goals, kind
Yeah.
of not have bickering. She hasn't bickered at me in over a year. It's like over 6 months, probably more or less. But before, she would
Yeah.
bicker at me all the time, and I would be like, "This is her personality. This is how she is." But in reality, she's not like that. She's a beautiful woman. She knows what she wants. And now I have the skills to kind of pull it out of her and figure out what we both need together. So that way, both of our needs are always met. We're not kind of like, forget about it. I don't need that. I'll learn to live without it. No, your needs should
Yeah.
be addressed. Your needs are important. They're never going to change. You feel what you feel, and that maybe the other person differently, but maybe you'll find a middle ground somewhere on it. The middle ground is
Exactly.
really
I
the
love
most
that.
important thing.
Yeah, I love that. It's a lot of people think that the ideal relationship is compromise, but it's not. It's really finding win-wins, finding the 100% for both people, not always compromising, like, oh, I'll learn to settle with that, etc. And
Right.
so here, the other thing that's interesting too is like you moved out at some point, right? Because things were so
The
tense.
first 2 weeks, she wanted me out. She wanted to move out. And I said, and she said, okay, you can stay, because I started to like kind of practice, this what the course is teaching me. But I still felt like she just said it to be nice, she didn't really
Yeah.
want me to stay. So I decided, okay, instead of me, her moving away, let me keep her comfortable. So while I work on myself, so I kept her in the house, I paid, whatever financiers were needed to be taken care of, I took care of it. And I moved out to my mom's house. So that way I was still close. I was still coming around, to be with the kid, take her to school, bring her, put her to bed. We were still able to talk about things, but it took me probably about 4 months to move back in, to where I moved back in just to, not no affection, no nothing, just kind of, it's a little bit better now, but we still had to keep working at it. So yeah, it took a while to
Mm.
get here.
Yeah. So now you guys are moved back in. Children are in the same house, sleeping in the same bed,
Hmm.
planning vacations together. It seems like right
Hmm.
now, a lot of
Hmm.
vacations.
Yeah.
So basically, you are not only a functioning couple, but now you show the signs of what a healthy couple looks like. Like literally,
Right.
you tick all the boxes. But of
Right.
course, right? We learn this program. You will never say, "I have the perfect relationship," because we know the work never ends. The work never ends, right? But you can always become
Yeah.
better. You can always create more safety, etc. So that's a humble approach. I love that. Now I want to go deeper into something interesting you said, which was you tried the high value man card for a while. And before you're always bickering, you're always like kind of butting heads in the conversation, in the relationship. And now it's at a point where you don't bicker anymore. You talk about issues, you try to see the other people's side, etc. This to me is a very different definition of what a man or a leader is in a relationship. Because I think for a lot of people, a man is someone who leads with solutions, who leads with fixing problems, who leads with decisions, right? People talk about the high value man being like, oh, you need to know what you want. You need to make decisions. You need to stand up for yourself. You need to impose yourself essentially and not let people walk all over you. But then what we're saying here is like, no, that's actually a much more finessed balance than that. Tell me how that definition for you has changed from the beginning to now of what being a man who creates safety, who creates this culture of the relationship looks like, feels like, does, etc.
I think the culture of the high value man card is mostly about putting out statements. This is what I'm stating needs to happen, and this is how it's going to happen. It doesn't take into consideration what the other person wants and what statements they might have. And what I learned is that it's better to almost push people into the right direction with questions. So you're questioning what they want to say to kind of get it out of them, and not you telling them what to think. So that way it's still getting to the same goal, it's the same end result, but it's just a different, more finesse way of doing it, like using your frameworks where you're able to more use questions than statements. That's basically it.
Yeah. And I think I picture, I remember working for this guy. His name is Chris Kane. And he's kind of my first example in life of what a good leader looks like and sounds like. So whenever Chris, this guy, he would be in a meeting, let's say a meeting was an hour. He would spend the first 40 to 45 minutes asking questions, understanding, being humble and saying like, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I don't understand something. You said this. I wouldn't agree with that. I guess you tell me what your side first. So he would be totally on the outside world seems beta, right? You were basically admitting I'm wrong. You're right. Let me understand from you. But what he's doing was he was gathering data. He was understanding from both perspectives, from all perspectives. And then for the last 10 minutes, he would just suggest his suggestions.
Yeah.
And the suggestions will be so poignant, so effective. And not only that, because other people feel heard, they are more willing to hear him out as well, right? And I think a lot of people, like when they talk, let's say your partner brings up a problem, like a philosophy that you don't agree with. Our initial instinct is no, but, right? I hear you, but no, you're wrong. Let me tell you what I think.
Mm-hmm.
If you do that, the other person will not listen to you. I mean, you haven't really opened up the other person yet, but here we're saying like, okay, I hear you. Let me understand that first. let me make you feel understood. Let me paraphrase that to you, back to you, to make sure I understand it. Once
Mhm.
everyone understands, you make your kind of philosophy as a suggestion. I understand where you're coming from. Can I tell you something that the other side to this, perhaps? Here's
Mhm.
what I'm thinking. I may be wrong. You tell me. So this is where the frameworks become beautiful, and you can really resolve conflicts a lot faster this way, right? Which is funny. So
Yeah.
this is both soft but assertive at the same time. It's a mix.
Mhm. It almost feels like it's tricking the other person at first because you're getting them on your level. You're not like immediately butting it, and then you're finessing your thoughts into them. But it's not trickery. It's just that's what good communicators do. That's what I actually find whenever I see a movie or a speech or something, or the people talking. I actually notice that now more, that the good communicators, they ask questions. They lead the conversation through questions, because that kind of gets the person more on your side. You're not debating head to head. You're actually are on the same page talking about solutions. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's
I
a
mean,
beautiful.
that's an interesting point too. Like a lot of people in the program, they learn this stuff, right? They learn all these skills to communicate better, to dance in a conversation better, and they feel like they're being manipulative, or their partner says like, "Hey, stop trying to. Why are you talking like that?" Right?
Hmm.
The analogy that I often give is like, if you take a business course, let's say, or you take a course in presentation skills, does that make the presentations you make after the fact less genuine?
Right.
No, like it's genuine. The only difference is now you actually know how to convey what you actually think. It actually makes it more genuine, if anything.
Exactly.
Um, so a lot of people think like genuineness or not have to do with the action itself, but it's really about the intention itself. And if you come from the right intention, it will show in your micro expressions, microtones, those intentions, and that's what really counts. That's what really matters. Yeah.
Hmm. It's
Um,
it's because it takes a long time for people. People don't have this notion that people don't change. That's what I always used to think. You can't change. You're the way you are.
mhm.
You're always going to be like that. But that's a false notion. We change on a daily basis, and the change, because the course is so powerful. You have so many changes initially that are huge. They're actually turning you into different person, and the
Yeah,
the partner is looking at it, and they're suspicious about it. They're like, is this a manipulation tactic? Is he trying to control me in some weird psychological way? But the more you stay consistent with it, the more you never fall back to the old person. Or as soon as you fall back to the old one, you realize, okay, I'm doing what I used to do. I got to do what I'm supposed to do now, the new me. It kind of, if you stay consistent, then sooner or later they'll break open. They'll start to see that this is the new you. The old
I
person
love
was a
that.
toxic person, but
Yeah,
that's not where we're at now. We're moving forward.
yeah. And I think you mentioned that to me, where the first couple of months after you joined the program, you started to change the way you talk, think, and everything. Your partner was more resistant than before you started.
Yeah.
And that's what we call the paradox of change. We talk about this in every single interview that we have because it's such a common thing that people go through, where as soon as you try to change, people doubt you, people resist you because you have been living a certain way for decades, and your partner has trusted you so many times, and she's been burned so many times. So now she needs to make sure that whatever you do is real. She's not interested in the fake stuff, the whatever. She wants the real changes. And I think that is also kind of going back to the conversation about what it takes to being a full true leader. A true leader can either become a leader or they can appear like a leader, right? If you play the
Right.
high value man card, if you play the strong man card, the 1%, 3% man, whatever you want to call it these days, you're basically focusing on appearing, but you're not focusing on becoming. And your partner
Right.
can smell that from a mile away, right? All
Yeah.
the missing
Yeah.
internal shifts, the micro tones, micro expressions, all the paradoxes, the
Mhm.
inconsistencies in your actions. It really shows itself because you're operating by scripts.
Yeah, but as long as the main thing is, you got to believe. If not, like, you got to believe. You got to see that this is the right way of doing things. You got to understand that the way I used to be was wrong. This is right, and if you believe that this is right and this is the better way, then it's not a problem. You'll go into it. You just can't lie to yourself. So that's what a lot of people, I feel like, are doing. They're just thinking like, oh, this is a top. this is like a manipulation because I'm still lying to myself. I don't really fully believe it. But once you kind of dig into your problems, start to look through it, you know, go down the rabbit hole into your own past, then you could start to slowly understand where you're supposed to be, what a healthy relationship looks like. How do you get there? How do you stay there? And then others around you will believe it. You know, they'll see it. They'll see the positivity in you, and it'll kind of, you know, they'll be okay with anything as long as you're better. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And brings me to my second point too, which is about that identity shifting, which is what you're referring to, I think, is changing your identity away from your old self to the new self. And the best example I can give is imagine you are standing in front of two smokers who are trying to quit. And for fun, you give each of them a cigarette. One person says, "Hey, Jeff, no thanks. I'm trying to quit smoking." The second one says, "Hey, Jeff, no thanks. I'm not a smoker."
Yeah.
The second guy is going to quit, right? So a lot of people do that. A lot of people, they learn these tactics, they learn all these things, and they say, okay, I know the bulletproof vest. I'm going to become better at that, or I'm going to be better at that. I'm going to be better at the frameworks. I'm going to be calmer. I'm going to be XYZ, but they haven't shifted the identity yet. And that's actually the hardest part, is being able to, because the identity level, it's such a subconscious part of you, right? And to change your subconscious is really difficult. Like, that's why people don't change their identity, because to change the subconscious is really hard. But that's the main meat of the program, and why our program, I think, works super well, is because we not only show you how to change, but we show you how to change your identity so that you can do these new things because you are these new things, not because you want to have some outcome, right? And what was that epiphany for you like? What was that initial, like when you first learned this stuff and you haven't shifted your identity versus once you have shifted it, what was the difference in feeling, and what was the milestones that you went through to make that shift?
I think it was when I was trying to run the campaigns, I was trying to have the talks with her. You know, it would go great for the first couple of minutes. Maybe I'd hit the right, you know, notes that I'm supposed to. But then out of nowhere, my old self would peek in, you know, my old way of doing things would peek in. And she's like, aha. And then the old fights would come back immediately. So, you know, I used to, you know, get down on myself. I'm like, oh man, this is, you know, this is not right. Something is wrong. And I would always go back through the fights that we had, or through the talks that we had, and try to identify, like, where is the old me? Why is the old me wrong there? You know, what should I be doing? What should the right thing to do? What's the right thing to say? And then I would visualize over again how I would do it over with the new mindsets, with the fixed, you know, old mindsets. And little by little, you know, the mistakes is what actually got me the results. You know, without the mistakes, if I didn't identify them, if I just had them and then just got mad over it and did my own thing, it would just never get me to where I am right now. Because if you look at your mistakes, you adjust the course, you know, the not tactics, the ways you go about it, and you truly believe it, that this is the wrong way and this is the right way, it's easy, you know, it's an easy way after that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first ingredient there that you're mentioning was really humility. It's really looking at yourself and saying, like, okay, if my partner is not loving me right now, sure, I could say she's not committal. I can blame her, but I'm not going to learn anything that way. I need to look within first and say, like, okay, what was it that I did? Once you look within, you need to also couple that humility with the understanding of the principles. Because what happens is, you know, for a lot of people, they know they're doing something wrong, but they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Right. And they know something feels off. I don't know. I'm sure I'm screwing up. I don't know how I'm screwing up. I don't know what I'm doing really. And if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're messing up, you can't fix it. So you need to couple this humility with what we call systems thinking and principles thinking to really understand, okay, I know all these principles and systems behind relationships. What was broken about myself, about the relationship? And then you can use that to figure out a diagnosis. Basically, you're becoming a better doctor of your relationship. Once you figure out a diagnosis, you can figure out a treatment. And you're just repeating the cycle over and over again. Each time you're taking the subconscious, making it conscious, and then you are changing the behavior and putting that back into your subconscious again. It's a very scientific, methodical process. And I love that. That's what we teach, right? It's what we want you to do.
That's a surgical approach, you know, because it's easy to blame the environment, blame the character. it's easy to blame the course or whatever, but it's not the course, it's not the character. It's more the environment. I'm sorry, it is the environment. You got to look in the environment and you got to look at yourself. You always have to look deeper in, because those
Yeah.
are the core issues that you have to deal with. You're not going to fix the other person. You got to fix yourself first, and then you can slowly, surgically get them to be on your level.
Yeah. So what was that timeline for you? Like, because a lot of people, there's so many courses nowadays, like they preach changes in yourself and everything for like 2 weeks. The worst thing that I hated was the weekend retreat. Like these relationship people doing weekend retreats. How the heck can you solve your relationship in a weekend? Like, how the heck can you learn anything? Like, people in our program, they like study this stuff 6 to 12 months straight. I mean, you took a year straight to study this stuff, to master this stuff, of continuously working on yourself. How long did it take you, like realistically, before you felt, okay, I feel home with these processes, with these talking this way, with thinking this way? I feel pretty home with it. Maybe not 100%,
right,
relatively.
Probably about 8 months, I would say. The
8 months.
first 4 months was like, the roughest. It was just striking out. Then maybe, 5th or 6th months, I was already starting to understand, okay, that mistake, I got to adjust, and kept like going, kept digging. And then after the 6 months, we had like I joined Tinder. I said, forget this. This is not going anywhere. She's just stuck on my old confirmation bias. This is not going to work. I did it on her credit card for some dumb reason. She found out about it, caused us to have another, talk, which led to actually moving us forward towards me moving back, us getting back to getting affection back, and actually getting. And then probably 2 months after that, so about 6 to 8 months, is where I felt comfortable. I felt like, okay, this is the new me. This is, this is how it's supposed to be. Like, less and less of my old stuff keeps peeking back. But still, this is a year and a month after I joined the course, and I'm still doing the program over again. I can't wait till version 3 comes out, and I'm gonna start it all over again.
Yeah, today's a Saturday. Yeah, I'm working tomorrow to finish the modules. I've been working 7 days a week for 9 months to get this out. It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be great. Yeah, it's gonna be the most complete. Like, I don't think people even need a coaching call anymore after this version. Seriously.
And majority of the time, you don't need coaching calls. If you really do the work, unless you're getting stuck, like the Facebook group, the Loom videos, and the course is perfect. You don't need more.
I would agree. I think the average person only needs like 2 or 3 coaching calls before they fully get everything in their lifetime, really. So yeah, and this community is kind of self-sustainable, because there's so many great people there who are just sharing so many insights. Like, they're sharing their own novels essentially of their insights, which is amazing.
Before I started, I thought me and you were gonna have like weekly therapy sessions, like one-on-one therapy session. I was like, what? It's not? What do you mean? When are we gonna talk about my problems? But no, it's not how it is. You just give the blueprint, you give the info, and then you work it out yourself.
Yeah, but again, that's because when you first started, and this is the third point I want to bring up, is like, we always say no one's situation is unique. And I think when you first come into the program, you were skeptical of that. You didn't believe that, right? It's like, no. Like, nobody can say that, okay? My situation, every situation is different. There's no like one size fits all.
No.
Tell me your thinking at first. Like, so when I said to you, like, no, I don't want you to, because I say it to you in the beginning.
Yeah.
No, I don't want you to tell me stories. I don't care about your stories. If you tell me stories, you're out. In fact, right?
And I was like, what do you mean?
what do you mean?
How can you fix it? How can you fix it if you don't know my story? You can't get a solution without my story. But yeah, you don't need a story. You don't need to hear the story. You just need to see what is the right thing to do. You got to see what a good relationship is supposed to look like, because a lot of people don't have role models to go by. A lot of people come from divorced families. They have a lot of toxic people that keep going from relationship to relationship and giving them advice. It's you need to see what is supposed to be a good relationship, what is expected of you, to be a friend, to be a communicator, to create safety, to have the same goals, all these things. And then once you realize, okay, this is what I need to do, this is what I did wrong before, and now this is how I'm going to do it. And it's not unique at all. We're all in the same boat. most of us don't have emotional safety, psychological safety, you know, and
that's,
without that,
yeah,
that's the root of all evil, you
that's the
know,
root.
that's it.
That's the root of all evil. And I think that's the key difference is, I think before people find this program, people only understand the tactics behind relationships.
Right.
Right. And because they only see the tactics and they think the tactics are it, like that's what's available. When people say, no, I have the principle that will solve everything, they go, no, no freaking way. Even Gottman doesn't have that. Right. But for example, I always get like a lot of what ifs, right? What if my partner is depressed? What if she says this to me? What if she wants divorce? What if she's having PTSD? What if? The problem is not the problems. Like the problem is not your partner's depression, her PTSD, the fact that she hates you. The problem is not that whatever, insert problem here that makes you think your problem is unique. The problem is that your partner does not have enough safety to go through the depression with you, to share her depression with you, to share her PTSD with you, to share the problems with you,
Right.
to share her true thoughts about this relationship, etc., with you. Because what makes us hopeless in a relationship is not the problems. It's the fact that I have a problem and I can't even talk about it.
Right.
Right. So again, that's why we say, once you understand the principle, and the lack of emotional safety is the principle, it's the first principle behind all relationship issues. And once you fix emotional safety, you fix everything. That's why we say nothing is unique, because it doesn't matter what you're facing. If you create emotional safety, you create healing, no matter what problems you face. Right.
Yeah.
And the same thing for like all the 5 pillars that we have in our program, right? The 5 pillars are there, and it doesn't matter what your problems are. The 5 pillars stay the same. The 3 layers of changes that you need to work on stays the same.
Yeah, definitely. Because majority of times people can't even tell themselves the truth. You know, they don't even have enough emotional safety to understand what they want, what they need. And then they keep telling lies to other people, and it makes the other partner confused, because you're like, okay, I thought you told me this, but because they really didn't even have enough safety to themselves to tell themselves what they want, to tell it to you, you know. So and then in a Gottman approach, they say, oh, these are perpetual issues, you know, these are the perpetual issues of life, meaning that if you have these issues like the money, the religion, this, that means you're going to have these fights for the rest of your life. So get used to them. Understand that this is not supposed to break you up. Everybody has these fights, but that's not true. You know, you can definitely push through these things. It's just, you just have to finesse your way through it. You know, it's not a very special.
It's a very depressing view of relationships, right? It's like, oh, you have issues, deal with it. Like you're going to have issues forever. Just suck it up. And so it kind of makes marriage into this institution that's not enjoyable. You do it because you kind of have to.
Right.
But because you ask yourself, like, well, if it's so miserable, why do it? You know?
Exactly.
And I refuse to believe that. When I was trying to save my own relationship too, I refused to believe that that was the highest goal. And so when people say, for example, well, you're married for 20 years, of course, the sex is going to be stale a bit. I refuse to believe that. There's no freaking way. And so I dug into the principle to see, where is this going? Like, there has to be a way. There has to be a way where it's a win-win-win for everybody.
Of course. Yeah, it has to. You have to know what your needs are, what your wants are, and you have to be able to tell this to your partner, who is your best friend, who is there for you, that's supposed to, you know, put up with these needs. So they should, you know, want to help you to get through with these needs. So if you can't even explain to them the needs, and you're just going to continuously in your head have a problem about these needs, they're never going to get solved. That's not a healthy relationship at all.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. But that's why, if you don't have safety, that's impossible. That's an impossibility. Talking about the sensitive things like sexual things, or talking about money, talking about kids. Those are heavy conversations that require a ton of safety. If you don't have that, you got nothing. Which is why we also say you also need admiration, you need goal alignment, you need the sexual passion, and it needs to be created in that order. And really, with the 5 pillars, you don't need anything else. You're good. You're set. You just gotta check how's the health of each pillar right now.
Skip pillars, you know. People think, like, I've seen people skipping pillars here and there. That's actually gets them even worse, because it kind of just knocks them back down, and they don't understand what's happening. So you really have to, does that emotional stuff first before the sex. You can't have affection if you don't have emotion,
I mean, you
It's
tried to do that, right? Like you tried to go to affection at one point, and I think that
right.
caused a bit of a row. And then you realize, oh, I got to go back into the safety first. And then once you build the safety, you actually created sexual passion much easier because now you can actually talk
Right.
about the sensitive stuff.
Right. Because even, when we were having affection and intimate times, I didn't even understand that she doesn't like to kiss, for example. She doesn't like to, she's not into eye contact. And before, I always thought this was a character thing. She's something she's thinking about, negative about the relationship, negative about me. It's like the distrust that went back to years ago. But then once we got to talking, once we got to be able to open up about these things, it's like we're now, all these things make sense. All these things that I was actually angry and anxious about, there's no need for that. If I had the emotional safety and the psychological stuff to talk about it, I wouldn't even have gotten any problems later on, but
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
problem.
So just to recap for the people, again, no one's situation is unique. Why? Because the 5 pillars are all you need. You need emotional safety, psychological safety, admiration, alignment, and sexual passion. Now, how do you get those 5 pillars? You need to master the frameworks of how to dance in a conversation, especially the tough ones. Well, how do you dance in a conversation? You got to make sure your mindset is right. You got to think about things in the correct way. You can't lose your emotions here. And how do you make sure you do this every single day for years on end? And if things genuine, you got an identity shift, which again are the 3 layers of changes. 3 layers of changes leads to 5 pillars. You do that, you become irreplaceable. You do that, no matter what problems you have, it doesn't matter. No one's situation is unique. The process to healing is the same, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's
People
like,
just got to get over it. That's it. Just do
yeah.
the work, and that's it.
It's like the analogy I have too is like, okay, imagine you have a pill. This pill literally can solve all sicknesses. That pill will deem doctors obsolete because there's no longer a need to diagnose. I don't care about the diagnosis. It's like, why should I diagnose you if this pill can solve everything? Just take it. There's no side effects. It's kind of the same thing where like, I don't care what your situation is. I don't care about your partner having PTSD, what your attachment styles are, what the 4 horsemen of whatever relationships are. I just want to fix
The
it for
4
you.
horsemen.
The 4 horsemen. Yeah, I just want to fix it for you, So one of the things that plagued your relationship quite a lot was the sense of irreconcilable differences between you and your partner. There was some decisions, some philosophies, maybe about money, about kids, whatever it is, that you couldn't agree on. And I think if you ask a lot of experts on this, they would say, oh, if you have these irreconcilable differences, maybe you shouldn't have gotten married. Maybe you should have just divorced and find someone else who actually fits your values, fits whatever it is. Right. I think that was how you operated back then because of why the whole relationship kind of went downhill a bit. Tell me your thinking there. Tell me where you were when you first met me about how you handled these irreconcilable differences.
Well, I only saw one way or the other, there was no middle ground for me. And then this is what I learned through the course is that it's not going to be one or the other, it's somewhere in the middle. So you have to be able to kind of come to that conclusion both together. The irreconcilable differences were solved. We don't have irreconcilable differences anymore because now we're able to talk about the situation, discuss it, break it down to get to each other on the same page about it, because if you're just gonna do the high value man stuff and just force yourself on the situation, you're never gonna get your way, but if you could understand the other person's value behind it, why they think that way and why they want to do that thing, it's very easy to kind of come to a mutual agreement on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And for me, it really wasn't the perpetual issues. It was really the infidelity that we had like 10 years back that we never dealt with. That was really the main issue for us, is that we kind of said that we're over that, because we just wanted to sweep it under the rug. We didn't know how to discuss it back then. It was either, if you cheat, I'm out, or if you cheat, I'm gonna cheat, but those are not the right ways to go about it. What we should have done back then is we should have just sat down, talked about it. What was missing for her in the relationship? What was the reason for that? What did she find attractive in him? What did, all these positive things that actually get us to a solution. But we didn't do that. So we try to sweep it under the rug. We try to pretend like we're happy. And we kept going for the next 10 years. And it kept infecting everything in our relationship. It kept making me always in my head, happy at one moment, anxious and sad at the next moment. Kind of like almost, I got a bipolar diagnosis by a psychiatrist and the therapist because of that. But it really wasn't it, because I was just never able to express myself, what was bothering me. I wasn't even honest with myself about it. And then, because I wasn't able to talk about it, she didn't know what's wrong with it. She just thought it was a character issue of myself. And it infected everything that we had in our relationship until, I actually looked back and found out that that was actually the root cause. That was the root cause of our issues. And then we were able to kind of understand and put it behind us, just what we should have done 10 years ago and put it behind us and never thought about it back then happened like 3 months into the course. 3 months into the course, we talked about it, and that's it. I've never thought about it ever again. It was on my head every day for 10 years,
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's interesting because, one of the videos that I always stay away from making is about affairs, because I feel like the philosophy that we have about how to deal with your partner having an affair, or you having an affair, and how to get over an affair, a lot of people's philosophies on that are very toxic. They're actually self-perpetual in a negative way. And I think a lot of people hearing the story is going to be very perplexed as to like, how could you ever get over this this affair? So let's break it down a bit. I think the first thing we need to understand is that one, it's this conversation around the fundamental attribution error. Is this a character problem, or is this an environmental problem? And in our program, we always say it's always best to assume that it's an environmental issue first, because time and time again, we have research and evidence. You see this everywhere you go. You put someone who's nice in a bad environment, they become bad. You look at the Stanford Prison Experiment, right? You yourself, you look at your own life, your past, and you say, why did I do the bad things I did? Because I was in a bad environment. The environment made me self-preserve. The environment made me selfish, whatever it is. And I did all these things because of the environment. So the environment has a very big correlation and big effect into people's behaviors.
Yeah.
But people love to label character. People have an affair and they say, oh, because you're a cheater, or because you have no morals, I can never trust you again, right? It's as if like they're tabooed for life.
Right.
But what we find very quickly, and we find in our program, and you see this a lot in our program, is once you change your behavior, you will change the environment in the relationship. Once you change the environment in the relationship, you'll be shocked as to how much your partner's behavior can change and do change as well.
Exactly.
Now, I guess for you, how did you, because I say this many times, how did you believe that in the beginning? Before seeing evidence of it, even feeling evidence of it, like how did you believe that if I change my behavior, then maybe she will change too?
Well, my behavior it's not really my behavior. It's really the mindsets that I learned initially from your course. I didn't doubt them. I didn't think like, oh, maybe he's right, maybe he's not right. I believe that you're saying the right stuff. I completely believed it, and I completely went along with it. And then as I got into it deeper and deeper, I realized, okay, so that is what the cause is not the character, it's the environment. And I started to look back at what was the environment at that time, what was around us. Of course, it was my last year of grad school, so I was studying nonstop. I was, not there for her. Of course, we weren't able to talk because we didn't even know how to talk back then, so it's like really breaking down my issues through the lens of your course, and then it's really, that's where I saw that it's all environment. There's no character. We all want the same stuff. We're all human beings and we all want the same things. We just got to find out the way to get there. And that's through the environment.
What would you say to people right now because your partner had an affair and you decided to come back to the relationship and work on this relationship even. A lot of people would say, Ilya, what a simp.
Yeah, yeah.
What would you say to those people?
It's not that simple. You know, it's not that simple that she did this and that's it. You're supposed to get rid of it. Because if you never look at what caused her to cheat, then you'll get into another relationship and that person will also cheat, because you know the core root issues is how I approach a relationship. You know, so if I learn how to better approach a relationship, I could prevent that cheating in the future. You know, but if you don't ever solve that problem, you just get rid of her and get a new slate. That's mistake is going to continue happening because you don't
Yeah.
really understand what's supposed to be a healthy way to go about it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's funny because before I met my current partner, I had a lot of failed relationships. Some cheated on me. Some people just left. It never worked well, basically. And I always like blame them, right? I always blame them. It's like, oh, I left her because she cheated. I left her because she was non-committal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I played this high value man card of like, no, I'm better than that. Right. So I just told myself, I'm going to find someone better. I'm going to find someone who's more loyal, who's more committed, who has all these things. But then, you know, in my existing relationship, we discovered some truths that was really difficult too. And I started blaming my partner too. But then when I investigated it, I realized, ooh, I did actually much worse things to her, right? So here I was making her very miserable, very, very miserable. And and unknowingly, I thought I was like the best guy ever. It's like, oh, I'm so awesome. But I was making her so miserable. And part of what made her miserable was the fact that I thought I was so awesome. Nothing makes people more miserable than being around someone who thinks they're so awesome. And you can't even tell them how not awesome they are. Right? You can't even tell them how unhappy they are, because if my partner tells me that she was unhappy, I would take that as an insult. How dare you? So I was making her miserable. There was no safety to talk about it. And I expected her to live her one and only life. And she was 24 at the time. Her one and only life with me for the rest of my life, not being happy and not being able to even express how unhappy she was. Now, once I discovered that, I was like, the affair, who gives a shit? So much worse, you know. Now that it humbled me so much, and I realized other people cheated on me, other people left me, other people just ghosted me, whatever it is, didn't care about me. These are all manifestations of me making them miserable in ways I never knew. Only until I humbled myself. And I think that's how you're feeling too. It's the humbling of yourself to say like, oh, I'm going to repeat this over and over again.
That's the alpha move. The alpha move is to go into yourself and figure out these things. The simp thing is to play the high value man card. That's actually the simp way of going about it, you know, because that never gets.
I think that's a simp way. Yeah, I think that's a simp way of going about it. Like, going back to Chris Kane, this guy I was working with, there was this client I remember one time who was really toxic. He was like cussing at us. He was screaming at us. And Chris, for a whole 40 minutes, was just there asking him questions, asking him to tell him more, leading into the toxicity, instead of being this alpha male character and going like, out, get out of here. But what happened was, eventually, at the end of the last 10 minutes, he did fire the client. But in the moment, he learned so many things about himself, about the business, etc. And I thought, wow, that is power. Power is when you don't even feel the need to impose your power, to show off your power. You transcend having to even think about power. You just want to figure out what is the best decision that I can make for me, for her, for everybody involved. That is real power.
Power is to get them to say what that you actually want them to say. That's the power. That's the power.
That's power. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Now, I want to talk to you here about this concept of it doesn't take two to tango.
Right.
Because you are living and breathing proof of the fact that it doesn't actually take two to tango. right? And I think people misunderstand that sometimes. It's not to say that your partner has no role in you reconciling, but when you're in the brink of a divorce, you have two hopeless people who doesn't want to work on the relationship, who doesn't really know how to work on the relationship, who doesn't really want to try. And there's a feedback loop there where your hopelessness will make your partner even more hopeless. As your partner gets more hopeless, you get more hopeless. What we're saying is it takes one to break that feedback loop of hopelessness. And that was you.
Yeah.
So there's an evolution to this, right? So at first, there was probably the beginning period where you felt like you switched your attention from trying to save the relationship to looking within first. That was the first stage of the evolution. Second stage was once you have your inner shifts, you use the inner shifts to start to reverse the feedback loop in the relationship. Third stage is when your partner resists that. Fourth stage is when your partner realizes, no, this is real. Was that the stages you went through? Like, describe those 4 stages in your experience from your eyes.
Almost. The first stage was actually getting to be okay with a divorce, you know, because before I thought the divorce and the kid moving away, this is the worst possible thing, and I got to save it. I got that urgency illusion. I got to fix it quick. But the first part was actually me saying, okay, you want a divorce? I can see why you want a divorce, because I'm a terrible partner. You know, we didn't have anything good. I kind of ruined, you know, your one life here. And I completely agree with you. So we met with a mediator, you know, we kind of figured out, okay, this is how we split up assets and just split up the whole lives. And I made her understand that, okay, it's fine. I'm not going to argue with you about the divorce. It's happening, you know, it might not happen right now. It might happen in 6 months, in a year. And the date, actually, she kept moving the date further and further. She said, okay, if it's 2 weeks, I'm moving out, then 6 months, I'm moving out. Okay, never, I'm going to move out. Okay. Knowing that it's still going to happen in the end. Because if I kept just fighting and fighting, everything I would do would be a manipulation thing. So once I was okay with her, with us having divorce, I understood her reasons why, and I was completely on board with it. I completely made it in my head understand that it's okay. Maybe we're not together raising our kid. Maybe we're going to be in, and it's not going to be the worst thing in the world. You know, people raise kids separately, and we could still make that the best possible, you know, childhood for the child. It might be even better if we're separated and she doesn't see the tension between us. And then after that, after I calmed the situation down, I kind of made her understand that I'm with you on this. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to fight you about it. Then I started to look back, you know, kind of dig in for the issues, you know, looking back into myself about the issues, and then trying to find solutions little by little, trying to work towards my new self. So it really getting okay with what they're saying to you. You have to do that. That's step one.
Yeah. What I think you're saying is, and I never thought about it this way until today too, which is, you know, we talk about being untethered, which is what you're talking about, is being untethered from your partner, from the marriage, whatever it is. And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to say to your partner, okay, if you are fighting for the divorce, right? If you're just hell-bent fighting for the divorce, fighting for not getting a divorce, you're basically saying, honey, I hear that you want a divorce, but I don't give a shit. I care about what I want. But when you start to be okay and understand that they want a divorce, now you're basically saying, okay, this is not about me anymore. I'm starting to understand what you want and what is important to you as well. So this makes it so much easier for people to actually accept your changes, because now they feel like you have their best interest in heart. You're not just coming from a very selfish place.
It's not, it doesn't have to be a fight. It's not like I'm going against you. I basically made it this is what it was. I made it so that I am trying to learn for my next relationship. You know, I'm trying to figure this out, what went wrong between us for the future, so I don't do this thing over and over. And I'm okay. We are already divorced. So every talk was almost like, it's fine. Like, yes, we're definitely getting divorced. It's not a problem. You know, I'm not here for that. I'm just trying to figure out what went wrong, how I could do better, and then slowly move towards into the course.
Yeah. So the intention behind your changes is not to get her back. It's really, how can I become the best version of myself just for the sake of it, which makes it a lot more altruistic, a lot more genuine, a lot more believable, a lot more easily acceptable, etc. And I think what happens too is, you know, once you start to make these shifts inside you where you can be untethered, you become more bulletproof, you become better at conversations in general, your partner feels more safe. And your partner feels more safe, a lot of the toxic behaviors that you saw in the beginning goes away as well. And as you see, so now you start this different, right? So you start again breaking the feedback loop by looking within, untethering, learning the skills. Your partner now becomes less, needs to self-preserve less, which leads to less toxic behaviors, which makes it easier for you to create even more safety, which makes her even more safe.
And I'm the one controlling this. I'm the one controlling.
And you're the node that controls this, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about this funny too. It's like, and if let's say one day you discover that the feedback loop is going in a negative direction, you are the node that controls that. So you just recognize it, be aware of it, use the frameworks to turn it into positive, and boom.
Yeah. It sounds easy. Sounds easy.
It sounds easy.
You have to be strong inside to do all this stuff. You know.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers. There's a lot of layers, and I think I talked about this with so many other people too. It's the hardest part about this is there's so many paradoxes, right? There's so many things that seems correct, but it's actually not correct. Like a classic example of this is when your partner comes to you with a problem. It seems like if safety is about allowing your partner to feel safe expressing stuff to you, a lot of men will interpret this as, okay, well, if I have all the answers, if I provide the answers, if I show that I'm an alpha male who can do all these things, then by definition, she should feel safe with me. But it's actually, no, it makes people feel less safe because whenever they talk to you now, they feel small.
Right.
Because you're the man with all the answers. I'm the peasant, the plebeian going, oh, give me some soup, right? That doesn't make people feel very safe.
No.
And so there's so many, I guess, misunderstandings, misconceptions, lies, illusions to creating safety, to being bulletproof, etc., that we address in the program, 60 plus hours that a lot of people I think don't understand. And so they understand this general picture of you need to reverse feedback loops, you need to create positive feedback loops, but they don't understand the how. That leaves you in your original position where you were with Gottman. You knew what it was supposed to look like, but you didn't know how, and you couldn't do anything with it. Right.
Yeah, it's kind of like all about bringing balance to a relationship, where sometimes you're supposed to be the masculine one, sometimes you got to be the feminine one, and you kind of have to understand which situation is which and what is your role in that, and the other person needs to know that your role and their roles too. And that way there's no assumptions, there's no toxic mindset. It kind of fixes itself up, but it really comes down to balance, finding balance within you and then within the relationship, and then you bring balance to them.
I love that. Yeah. And the right answer is always in balance. Yin and yang. The right answer is always in a balance, right?
Yeah.
Like people think about, when I say the word bulletproof, people think about like the stoic individual. But like that's not bulletproof, right? Bulletproof is about showing controlled compassion, which is the middle point between stoicism and totally getting lost in emotions. It's being able to show the appropriate emotion, but controlling it enough to where you're controlled. Like when your kid comes home to you crying, you're not gonna be stoic like, oh, what went wrong? It's like, no, you're going to stoop down to their level and show the appropriate emotion for that conversation. Same thing here. Same thing with the frameworks. It's not about imposing yourself. It's a balance between asking, stepping back, asking questions, being humble, and also later on being assertive as well at the right parts of the framework as well. It's a beautiful, like it's literally a dance.
It is. That's the dance. It's the balance is the dance, and you just got to know when your role is to do what, and then it's easy.
Yeah, I love it, man. So closing words.
Definitely.
Curious. So what made you decide to join my program in the first place? Because you've taken Gottman, the head honcho. What, looking at me, like I look like I'm still in college. I didn't have a lot of subscribers at that time. I think I had like under 10,000. What made you decide to go with me?
When I was watching your YouTube videos, they made more sense than the Gottman stuff. They kind of like, it kind of opened up my eyes to where I did go wrong. And even though I knew that approach it wasn't getting me to where I needed it to be. You know, we were still butting heads. Everything I tried would still get me even worse, like that further and further away part. But with your approach, within the first couple of weeks, even before taking the course, it started to kind of, you know, work. It's like, yes, we were getting divorced, but we were still being friendly and amicable about it. And then little by little, I started to understand that, yeah, like the videos made sense to me. They clicked to me.
Mm.
And it didn't matter how much, you know, what you looked like. It didn't matter. And even though those videos, I thought those videos were gold and they were so deep and, you know, this is it. Like, what else can you talk about in the course? But they just scratched like a little surface, you know, they just blew the dust off kind of deal.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Like, we're gonna launch V3, which is gonna be 80 plus hours of just content of like new stuff. It's everything you need. This is everything you need for life in this area of your life, which is relationship and more. And we have a hard time explaining to people just how much far beyond any other programs and therapy you can do this is. Like, and so we're actually trying to do like a free trial where we do like, okay, you get a 7-day free trial. Just look for yourself. Just get mind blown by yourself, and you see if you want to do this route or not. It's up to you.
Right.
We might try that. I don't know, because we're having no marketing words can describe
You can't
it.
explain it. Yeah, it's difficult to explain. And it's honestly, there's a lot of learning. So people have to be kind of understand that they're taking it like a college course, like a grad school course right here, where they have to take notes and show up to exams and, you know, not miss a day in class and like study your notes, you know. It's like, I think that's what people are missing from the YouTube stuff is they don't understand how deep this goes. Like, you have to be a student. You're a student in this. You're not just trying to get tactics to fix this thing really quick, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe it's a good thing to kind of show them, are you ready for this? Are you gonna like slack off and not show up to class for like the first 3 weeks? Or are you gonna actually dig deep and like do this, you know?
Yeah. And like it's a hard road, but it's a guarantee, you know, like whenever I say to people, well, Jeff, you can't give people guarantees. It's like, no, I can. I'm that confident in my stuff. Like, if you do my stuff exactly to the T, you'll be fine. I can guarantee you that. And I think a lot of my clients who have been there for a long time, they can say that. Like you can say that. It's like, dude, now looking back, I could not see how this could not have worked.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
You have to be honest with yourself. You didn't do the work. You didn't study for the test. So of course you failed the test, you know, but a lot of people don't, they still blame the course. They still blame the partners, you know, that's.
What's funny is, I remember when I first got on that call with you, that application call, you said, Jeff, don't pitch me. Just I'm ready. Remember that? And it was like a 5-minute call. I was like, this guy.
I was like, here's my credit card. Do it. Let's do this. That didn't need to be pitched, you know. I didn't need to be pitched, and I was right, you know, because your course is deep. It gets results. You just have to really understand that this is something that's a skill you're getting for the lifetime. This should be taught in like school, high school, I don't know, in college classes or something like that, you know, because this is like life. It just brings positivity into your life for the rest of your life, you know. It's priceless stuff.
Yeah. So Ilya, any last words for our listeners here who are going through what you went through a long time ago?
Yeah, definitely. It's just sign up, do the course. It's gonna work out, you know. Don't think you're special. There's no Jeff got it. The other courses, they don't really have it. And be humble, listen to your partner, understand what you guys' needs are, bring up what you want in life, and things will work out. Yeah, stay positive.
Awesome. So guys, thanks for listening. Again, this is Ilya. If you want to enroll or apply or submit your application for the program and learn more about it, you can click the link down below this video. There should be a link to the masterclass. It should be about an hour and a half. At the end of the masterclass, you will get some instructions on how you can apply. Be sure to submit the application properly, because we do take a look at everyone. I do take a look at everyone, and we are very selective of who we work with, and we turn down a lot of people. So if you want to learn more, you can do that. If you want to apply, you can do that. And I hope to see you in the program soon or somewhere in YouTube. But yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, Ilya.
I'll see you.